Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of AJC and the Web Devs.
Woo!
What's up, Ben? How you doing?
I'm doing all right. You sent me this weird link and I clicked it fully expecting to get fished and instead I'm just live for the world and I kind of wish you had just stolen all the money out of my bank account instead. Um no,
Well,
it's
you still don't have a MetaMask wallet, so I can't steal your money yet until you put your money into your browser. So,
there we go. There we go. Um yeah, no, it's great to be here. I'm super excited to be your first guest because you were my first guest and so it just, it feels kind of cosmically karmic in a way.
yes, reciprocal stream guesting, as it were. Yeah, you were launching a accessibility themed stream that you had so brilliantly named Semantics, and we had been chatting about some stream stuff at the time, and you're like, "Hey, you want to be the first guest?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to be the first guest." And now this is that, but a year and a half later, I think. So you are
Yeah.
already a full on streaming professional, even to the point of creating a streaming business, possibly. And it's really great to have you on here to help me get set up with my stream because I'm someone who streamed a lot, but I've never had my own stream. And you actually even came up with the name for this stream, which I am super thankful for. I thought that was a really good one. AJC and the Web Devs. I'm AJC, Anthony Joseph Campolo, and the Web Devs are you all, the guests and the even people in the audience, such as Saban, who just showed up. What's up, Saban? Great to see you here. Saban's a buddy from
Hello.
Prisma who will likely be a guest in not too long. I've not asked him that, but I bet he would do it. So the great thing about streaming is you just have friends and you bring them on, you can build cool stuff. And that's really the goal here for me is
Mhm.
to for people who do know me, they're probably thinking right now, Anthony, why are you doing another thing? You do not need to do another thing.
Yes.
My schedule is already so full up. But
Mhm.
I think that this is an opportunity for me to bring on people that I respect and who I feel like I could learn a lot from and create an opportunity where both myself and our audience can learn a lot from them. And I'm making a bet on this in the same way that I did with FS Jam, which is FS Jam was something I put a ton of time into for literally $0 return, but I believe that it would have returns far greater than an immediate monetary return. And that's kind of what I'm betting on with my stream. And I think that's what you were believing with Semantics as well, and that's kind of proven to be true, right?
Yes, I mean, there's so many different kinds of streams out there. And I think we're going to absolutely get into this over the course of today's stream because as we'll see nominally we're setting up your social card, but really we're starting to set up your stream identity in a lot of ways. And yeah, the kinds of streams that I do, that Alex Trost does, Jason Langsdorff, yourself, anyone who does this kind of bring on a guest type format. Um, you get so much value from just networking with people and getting to hear from them. Like probably the biggest lift I've gotten from Semantics is just getting to know more people in my industry, right? Getting to network. I think that is hugely valuable. And it's a very valid, selfish reason to do a stream is just to get to meet people like yourself and others in the industry. So that's a thing that I find very worthwhile as well.
Yeah. And in classic first stream fashion, I realized I was going through my AirPods for the last 5 minutes, but I should be going through my mic now. Hopefully that sounds a bit better for
Listen,
the
it's not a first
audience.
stream if you don't have audio video issues.
Yeah, I remember I
Y'all
had
should.
a weird echo thing going on in my first episode of Semantics for the first 5 or so minutes, but
Yeah.
also you managed to course correct, so it's all
Yes.
good.
The other thing was I cropped you terribly so that you were missing the
Oh
top
yeah,
half of
my
your
my head
forehead.
was like
Yeah.
all up
Oh, it was
like this.
criminal what I did to you. So yeah, this is I really love what we're about to do here, which is kind of building the stream identity out in the open. I think that, I've seen a lot of folks get interested in streaming. You and I might describe a new wave of dev streamers, especially people who are very, very new to the industry, who are, streaming their learnings live. And when I have given advice to that kind of like new wave of dev tech streamers, the number one piece of advice I give is like plan to start small with your content and then start even smaller than that. Um, you'll find people who have been in the business for a while. They'll have these very polished setups and, gadgets and gizmos and widgets all over, and like things look very clean. And that can be hugely overwhelming. I think that can be a lot to try to set up and figure out before your first stream. And it can also be really expensive. Like getting all the like equipment that you want can be really expensive for something that you don't even know that you want to keep pursuing. So I plan like I always recommend to start with just your face, a mic, and your screen. Usually, it doesn't need to be the best at any of those things, but just like start small and build up from there as you kind of figure out where you want to grow. So you did not come into this with like a full stream setup, or like, you don't have a stream identity necessarily. Like you and I are flat faces in an endless black void,
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah, and
this is
the goal with the stream is also to give me an excuse to build up that kind of skill set and the kind of
Mhm.
muscle memory with more advanced streaming technology, because you're someone who over the course of this last year and a half, you've added on little bits and pieces at a time, and you've set
Yeah.
yourself up where you have full control and autonomy over your own stream setup because you built it from the ground up, and so you know how to like tweak it and modify
Mhm.
it in every little specific way you could want. And that's really what I want to eventually get to, because I'm someone who have been more mercenary in how I approach streaming, because I am someone who is streamed for like DevRel content, and I have like a very strong like opinion in this versus like people who are more like content creator focused, who are like you need to have like the best kind of setup possible. And what I think is for like DevRel people, I think it's the opposite, that you should actually like you say, like lean into the kind of bare bones part of it, because you're ideally teaching something and you're trying to
Mhm.
get across content that is like not meant to be flashy and polished. It's meant to be understandable and clear and like straightforward. And so I think that, giving yourself slightly more of a baseline of like just using something like StreamYard, where it's like I can easily have our faces here. I can easily share a screen. I can easily bring a guest on. And like you would admit that just bringing a guest on with OBS
Oh
requires a
yeah.
lot of knowledge and work and setup. It's not something it's just like a turnkey kind of solution.
Right. Absolutely. And there are tools out there on the market that are trying to make that easier. Right now, some of the biggest ones. Hey, Adrian, welcome.
So
Yeah, I know Adrian knows full well streaming setup woes. But yeah, like there are tools on the market that like are designed to make like slight pieces of the OBS streamer setup easier. You mentioned bringing in guests. There's Video Ninja, which is like a free product. And then there's Ping, which all the cool kids are talking about these days, which is a paid product by Theo Brown that is designed to like more easily incorporate guests into your flow. But this is because like OBS is this kind of minefield of like infinite configurability, and it's not very intuitive. Like it's not the easiest app to use in the world, and so um, yeah, figuring out how you can skate by in your earliest streams with like the bare minimum, I think is huge. Especially because what you should be doing for your first few streams is like figuring things out. Like what do you like, what don't you like, how can you improve, right? You're not going to come into your first stream with everything decided. Because you just don't have that experience. Like you don't have that full context. You don't know necessarily how you're going to be a host until you're a host.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Theo is, when I think of the straw man content creator who hates StreamYard, Theo is the person I have in mind specifically. But I have great respect for Theo's streaming ability, and the fact that he's building a
Mhm.
whole company aimed at giving a streaming solution, I think is awesome. And I may even convince my boss to pay for Ping for my job
Mhm.
streaming just because I want to use it. And that would be a good excuse to use it and not have to pay for it myself. So
Yeah.
yeah, I undoubtedly will have Theo on it at some point with his busy schedule. I'm sure I can convince him to make an appearance. But
There we
when we
go.
get into what we're actually here to do, which is building out our social share cards, and so this is a
kind of small, seemingly small, but actually I think very important part of having a stream, which is when you're advertising an upcoming
Mhm.
stream, you need to have some sort of image to do that, because you don't want to just have like, a link to your Twitch and saying like, hey, here's an episode with this person. You kind of want to have something that's going to make it a little bit nicer and more presentable. And the way you usually do that is you have some sort of image that has both guests' heads and the title of the episode and maybe the time where it's going to happen as well. And this is something that is
Yeah.
very common across all of these streams. You have this, Jason has this, Alex has this. So it's a very common thing. And your solution for this, I thought, was just so cool when you explained it to me, because you literally just wrote a bunch of HTML and CSS to create an image, and you can slot in, avatar photos or things like that. You want me to go ahead and share your screen here?
Yeah, I've gone ahead and pulled up Twitter. So
Yeah.
first of all, especially when you've got someone else on, this is one of the like hosting opinions I've got. Like if you've got a guest for like a scheduled event, I believe as a host you have a duty of care to promote the stream, right?
Mhm.
And so yeah, I like to send out these tweets that's like, hey, here's what's coming up, a link to where you can watch it. I've got this like add to calendar link, which by the way, calendar CALNDR. This is a wonderful tool. You should absolutely be using this to like schedule your or like this generates like of your like Google Calendar links or whatnot, and it lets you like kind of change the events after the fact as well if you need. But what we're talking about here is this bit where I've got this like little image that has this title. Oh, okay. Yeah, so we're having this conversation in the chat about how Kurt Temple's done it. Kurt, I believe, has used a solution with Cloudinary, which is fairly common. I know Jason does this as well. It's those kinds of solutions I think are super cool. What they do is they use Cloudinary's like URL transformation like process to basically put all of this content as like layers against an image.
And
And
that
so you
makes
can,
sense to me, because I would imagine Cloudinary,
yeah.
if I was to think of like from, first principle, how I would build something like this, and where I've seen other people share similar
Mhm.
things, it's always build a social share cart with Cloudinary. Like I've
Yeah.
seen 4 or 5 people write that exact blog post
Yes.
before. So that makes a lot of sense. But what you're doing is you're taking it back a
Mhm.
level and saying, hey, Cloudinary is great. Doing this with a service is great. But if you wanted to actually do this yourself without having to use a
Yeah.
service, this is a way to do it.
That's exactly it, right? It's this whole like what is the absolute laziest I could make this, and what is the most fail proof I could make this. With Cloudinary, with the Cloudinary solutions, you kind of cede over control, right? So let's take as an example this text, right? Like all of your streams are going to have a title, right? Um, but I sometimes find myself needing to do slight tweaks because I'm like, well, I actually really would prefer like one word to appear on a different line. So maybe I'm going to change the font size and stuff like that. If you're fully automating everything with Cloudinary, that's going to be a little more difficult, right? You have to then do a bunch of like one-off things. So Cloudinary is an excellent, excellent hammer for this kind of problem. But it can be tricky to wield sometimes for some of these things. You have to set up a whole build process, and then you don't have a whole lot of flexibility for the one-off tweaks. So it's a trade-off, right? I'm not going to insinuate one way is better than another. Personally, I prefer this approach for my needs and preferences, what we're about to see today. Hey, Trost, we were just talking about you.
Good old
In a good way.
Trosty Trost. Yeah, you have your own
Yeah.
share cards like this. Do you know Trost how he creates his?
I'm sure you can answer, but I think it's Cloudinary as well. A lot of folks are doing the kind of Cloudinary approach. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
Um,
there you go.
yeah. So there's a lot to love about the Cloudinary approach. That's not how I do these, but there's a lot to love, and I don't want to diss it. It's just different set of preferences and constraints.
Yeah, Cloudinary is an awesome service, and I've built examples with it at previous companies, and it's like StreamYard. Like StreamYard gives you the ability to do things very simply, and you cede
Mhm.
control for the ease of use. And that's always a reasonable trade-off to make. It's just
Yep.
everyone has different trade-offs they want to make when they create stuff like this.
Absolutely. Yeah, so my approach is I make a web page. I want to see if I still have this like up public. Um, let's see, thumbnail. I might have hidden it.
By the way, I
Oh,
appreciate
there it is.
your DuckDuckGo usage. That's how you know you're a real a real web professional. You use DuckDuckGo.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to be using DuckDuckGo more. This is actually in kind of a browser profile and mainly just used for like streams and whatnot. But yeah, so what I have here, and I'm gonna go ahead and uh Adrian, basically, this fits into an 11D setup I've got. I'll go into that a little more deeply, but yeah. So I've just sent y'all a link to a web page that I've got, and it's a full web page. I could resize this, stuff like that. What one thing you'll notice that's kind of fun is I've made all of these text fields content editable. So this part now
So
says.
why is this the most recent one? Is this like your actual process in terms of you will always have whatever the last stream you did be set to this specific URL?
Right now it's all hard coded. I put in stream details in my setup. But mainly because I find myself every once in a while like having to go back and edit a different stream's video, like maybe 3 streams ahead, the title changes or something like that. Oh yeah, I have not bundled the fonts with this, so that is a problem there. But yeah. Anyways, so it's a web page though, and the quickest summary of why I like doing this as a web page is I can go ahead, I'll say, so I'm in my dev tools, right? I can go ahead and say that I want 1280 by 720. This should look like a very familiar aspect ratio. And then in my dev tools, I can go to HTML and like I can right click on that and I can say capture node screenshot. And ooh, there's an image that just downloaded. And if I open that up, boom, we have an image, right? Okay, so there's a few things here and there, like it captured the misspelled name or whatever, like the fact that it's like it thinks Campolo is not valid, but we can tweak this. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that about the Cloudinary API, but that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's the benefit here is that you have the full power of CSS in what you're doing here, all of it. Anthony misspells his last name.
Well,
yes,
I mean,
my last name is not yet a word until you teach your browser that it's a word.
Yeah,
you need to really make sure it knows.
You could get rid of this if you didn't have the content editable. This is just a little tweak that I've like added recently that like I may actually roll back at some point. But yeah, so this is broadly it, right? I've made a web page. I can edit it in my editor.
So, quick question. How are the images being done here? Are you just pulling an image from like a URL and just placing it there?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question.
And by which I mean the image of the avatar specifically is what I'm referring to.
Yes. The answer is yes, and I actually do have Cloudinary for that. I maintain a Cloudinary library of all the avatars.
Cloudinary is embedded within this solution.
Yes.
Even.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
So I could like show you the full setup, but it's very like custom to me and how I like to work, which is 11D because I've got like 11D streams. I figure it might make more sense though for us to start like even just bare bone basics, and then you can take what we build. We can build something in just plain HTML and CSS, and then you can kind of come in after the fact and you can say, well, actually, I want to incorporate this into some other flow. Maybe
ideally for me,
out of it.
I would like to be able to just grab like a GitHub like avatar URL and just like paste that into like an image tag. Like to me, that would be the ultimate.
Yeah. So let's do that. And actually, to kind of cheat here, I a year ago, I open sourced a template that's going to look basically like my thumbnail, but for the local React meetup. Let's see here.
I've spoken at this meetup long, it's almost 2 years ago now. I did a Redwood talk for this meetup.
Yep. So here's a repo that I open source. Anyone can clone this if you want, seriously. But let's go ahead and kind of work with this and see what we've got here. So I'll open up my terminal here. I need to close out of a few running processes I've got, but okay. So let me just
it's fun looking at this image and kind of seeing the seeds of semantic within it.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I'll scroll down here because
yeah, right there.
the,
Yeah,
like screenshot, right? Like it's the semantics template. I've just adjusted it for some branding for the local meetup, right? But it's the same thing. It really is. But if you look at this repo, there's not a whole lot to it. We've got an HTML file. We've got the meetup logo. We've got the background. We've got some CSS. It is bare bones. There's no build process for this because I'm at the point with my setup where I don't need a build process for it. This is the thing about automation is that I feel like people are so quick to reach for like automate all the things. And it's like, no, automate to the point where you don't have any pain points. And then when you feel like you've got pain points again, automate that. Because if you automate all the things, you're creating your own pain points. So I'm at the point where I'm happy enough with my setup and that like I can, tweak my HTML page. I can capture node screenshot. That is painless enough for me that I'm happy with it. And I don't feel like I'm overcomplicating things. This is a big feeling I have about automation. Yeah, so let's go ahead. I'm gonna, make a directory called Anthony, just to have something to work in, and then
that's me. It's me,
all right,
Anthony.
Yep. So what I've just done, I've created a directory. I've cloned the thumbnail template repo, and we can actually start kind of looking into this. And as you can see, it's
So this is not an 11D project. This
right.
is literally just a straight up HTML file with a CSS style sheet is pulling in.
Yep. I wonder, do I still have browser sync? Let's find out.
Oh, look who just showed up, Mr. Burns.
Hello.
For anyone who does not know, this is Chris Burns, my podcast co-host. We were talking about at the beginning of the show how me launching this feels a bit like FS Jam and that it's my own thing that I can do whatever I want with, and I really like that. And Chris was the one who boldly went into the unknown with me on my podcast.
Yes, absolutely. So this has this has a lot of things just to start, or even not really a whole lot, right? It's got a few things that we need. So we've got our stream title. What have we called this stream, Anthony?
This one was social share cards, I think is what it was called.
Social share cards. Oh, I should probably spell cards correctly. And this is, we'll say Monday, August 22nd, 2022. Call this AJC and the web devs. If I come back to Chrome here, like you can see, like we've already got quite an improvement here.
That's the vast majority of the information is already there on screen. You just gotta put my head instead of floating React head.
Yeah, and so what's the best way to get a picture of your headshot?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's go with the donut for now. I'm feeling the donut vibe right now. So let's go to either my GitHub or my Twitch. GitHub or my Twitter. I mean, GitHub is probably the place to go.
All right. Yeah.
My sweet loopy donut. One day I may use my face instead, but today I'm feeling the donut vibe.
All right.
This is an NFT for anyone who does not know. I paid $10 for that donut. It was worth every penny.
I am afraid I will never understand, and this is okay.
Cool. This looks awesome.
Right? So we're already like, I feel like I kind of took.
I could just take this and like I would kind of, use the browser to like make it look how I want, and then like grab a screenshot, and like
Yeah.
that right now could do exactly what I wanted it to do.
Yes. And the easiest way to make your browser do what you want is like go like inspect, and then in like the responsive view, set it to 1280 by 720. From what I can tell, that seems to be the ideal dimensions for social cards and thumbnails. Because that's another thing is I love reusing these cards as thumbnails on YouTube. Just because it looks better than just it generating a random frame from the video. So yeah, so we could do different things to this. Are there things you want to do to like improve the look of
The
this? Or
first
to make it
thing
your own?
that would occur to me would be the background,
Okay.
and getting some sort of like nice gradient looking thing like you have on yours.
Yes. So let's see how best to do this. Maybe we start with like a linear gradient.
Okay.
So
I
let
don't know
me.
anything about gradients. I just know that it's a common thing that looks really nice on background images, and I think you do have a gradient on yours. Am I correct on that?
Yes. So I've got a background image that has this kind of like tiled pattern. That's kind of what I've got, and I generated that like in Inkscape ahead of time. But we could really
What
here.
is
I'll just zoom
Inkscape?
out.
Just for
Oh,
the
that's a great question.
viewers' benefit.
So Inkscape is an SVG editor. It's akin to like I think Illustrator. It's the free open source SVG editor. So big fan of that. Highly recommend. Is it even a real website if it does not use Tailwind? No. Websites were invented the year that Tailwind was invented. No, I
Chris
will not
asking
be
the tough
taking
questions
questions.
here.
Okay, so yeah, so we have okay, so what we've got currently is there's like this background image set to background.jpg, and then I've got this like backdrop filter that actually does add like if I comment this out, we'll see that like the real image is actually just like a straight up photo of the meetup room.
Okay, that's cool. That's a nice touch.
Yeah, I like this because like first of all, this is the background image that like if you were to go to the meetups like meetup.com page, this is the cover image that they use just with these like grayscale transformations. So it's like already part of their branding, which I think is a key thing, right? Like when you've got a branding, like find ways to reuse it and reincorporate it. But at the point where it is like in the thumbnail, I don't think it's distracting or detracting in any way. In fact, you might not even notice that it's a photograph at first. Like
Yeah,
you might
it's
not.
pretty seamless, and because the tint of it makes it just dark enough that you can see it if you look for it, but it doesn't stick out at you.
Yeah. If we go back to here, right? Like, at this size especially, which is probably where a lot of thumbnails are going to show, like the lights and stuff almost seem like, generated noise more than, lights in a room. So I like that. That's a helpful thing I think to keep in mind, right? Is you want something that's like visually interesting, but absolutely takes the back seat to the text and images on top of it. So something that provides a little bit of complexity, but not an overwhelming amount of complexity. And gradients are a great way to do that. So
And what's the image that's on the back of yours right now?
this is so I have on my site here. I've got a little logo here that's like this, like geometric. It's supposed to be like a heavily stylized, like '90s Memphis style rendering of a B and an M for my initials.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah, it's
Ooh,
designed so
I
that like
never
you
knew that.
see it's designed so that you wouldn't have to like notice that and be like, oh, I see it's clearly a B and an
I always
M.
thought they're like wings. That's kind
They
of how
are.
I imagined it.
I called this rebrand Phoenix because I thought that together, like this looked like a firebird
Rising from the
in a way.
ashes.
But yeah. So what I have though is it turns out here it is. It turns out that those shapes tile perfectly. It's the FedEx arrow of web dev. I love it.
Yeah, there's an arrow
Yeah.
on the FedEx logo. Who never noticed it?
Yep. Yeah, and so it turns out these shapes like tile endlessly, like perfectly. So I just have this pattern where I created this like outline, and then I do have like you'll notice that there is a gradient here where it's darker on the left and lighter on the right. Mainly because I wanted to make sure that the text stood out. Color contrast, as you might imagine, is something that's important to me, but it's also something that makes a like more visually stunning graphic image, I think. Especially because the avatars usually tend to provide their own brightness and that kind of stuff. Like these are just thoughts that I have, right? Like your text should stand out more than the images because the images already stand out plenty as is.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And the text is where the most information is in terms like what is the episode, what's it going to be about, why should the viewer care about this particular episode versus anything else flowing through their feed.
Absolutely. One thing, and I'll sneak preview something I've been working on, which is I've been building a.
Yes, it's the kind of hot take I'm looking for. The hot tip, not hot take.
So for my own streams, I've been like building up a.
I love how you just have that deploy preview like on hand, able to type out.
I've sent it to so many people at this point. So I'm working on like building a site for my own streams, and you can see that this is the cover I'm kind of going with for this. And this I feel like meets the whole like it's got a gradient. It goes like there's a like black to completely transparent over here, but it's also got this pattern in the background, and the pattern I actually nabbed, and we can do this for your card if you want. I nabbed this from a site called Hero Patterns, which is incredible.
Needs
more
drop.
Never enough purple.
For those who don't know, purple is the Semantics official color.
Yes. So yeah, I grabbed this like formal invitation gradient, and then I just kind of dropped it in the cover like like hero, and I had a gradient applied, and it was just actually kind of a happy accident. But
yeah, this is great. This is exactly what I was hoping for, which is like nice kind of geometric shaped like like non-specific geometric shapes that kind of like look nice as a background image, but like I couldn't necessarily generate myself with my current level of like design ability. So this is awesome. So this is heropatterns.com.
Yes. I've given the link in the Twitch chat. What say we start with like I'm actually really curious about this topography one. Do you want to try this one?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it. It's organic.
Yeah. And it's it's a topographic map, and so if you're leaning into like journeys and treks, like it could be a good tie-in there, So all right. The other thing we'll need to know is what colors you're interested in here. And we kind of talked about this ahead of time, but let me know what your thought process is.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, I'm feeling the blues. I think that you've already monopolized purple, and purple's a great color, but I don't want to steal your purple thunder. And I have already had, like, if you go to my Twitch, you see that AJC web dev in the background. It was funny. There's a funny story behind this. This is like, it's not great, but it's better than nothing. And that's why I kind of had this as my background thing, is that this was as Trust said, buddy, I got the blues. But I generated this from a logo generator like 2 years ago when I was first getting into web dev, and I like wanted to have a logo. I had no idea how to create a logo, and I didn't have the ability to create a logo by hand, so I literally just plugged in my name into a logo generator, and they were like, give us like a couple different themes. So the theme was like technology, and so there's a terminal there, and it's just like a circle with a background, and there's 2 colors. And for me, this kind of worked for a while, but I want to make this look nicer and more legit. So I think these would be good starting colors to kind of create a more modern look around.
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find a way to like extract the colors from this. So let's just like Google and see if we can find a sketchy site that'll do it for us. That's the best thing to do. I almost was like extract sketchy.
One thing that I know you can do is you can download an image and open it in preview and then do a color dropper, and that will give you the specific colors. So that's one way to do it if this does not accomplish it.
Yeah. Ooh, hello. Can we... All right, let's see. What I'll do, the way I'll do this real quick is boom, we'll drag this up here. We'll see if there we go. Nice. Bring it in here.
Look at that. Look at that.
Go. All right. Oh, is it gonna go? You think? Okay. Aha. Okay. Cool.
Photopia. Are you familiar with this?
No.
Oh, this Trost is trolling us. Is this a real thing?
Okay. So yeah, we have
online photo editor. Yeah, looks like a real thing.
So we have kind of two colors here. There's this like dark blue, and then there's this like light cyan. I guess not quite cyan, but like light blue going on.
You're looking at Chris. This is what an AJC logo has looked like in the past.
So I think what would look really sharp is if we make the background color that darker blue.
Yes.
Oh, it's already coming out nicely. And then we'll make the foreground. We'll use your lighter blue here.
Yeah, no, that's the plan here. If you got design tips, Chris, feel free to throw them in.
All right, and so it now generates like the CSS that we need, and as you can see, like it's a big old like data image inlined SVG, but that's actually going to be super convenient for us here. So let's just like I'll comment these out so we have them. Let's see how we feel.
By the way, you don't have any written material around this, right? Because I'm just saying, like, this is something that I feel like I should write a blog post about to like.
I haven't done a tutorial on this, no.
Yeah, because this is right here. Like, if we could distill this down to like some written content, I feel like a lot of people would want to do this and realize this is actually a super dope solution that no one has even thought of. So that's not a thing for you. That's a thing for me to do. I'm just like bookmarking that in my brain right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm wondering, is the ... just like a feature of VS Code?
I do not know. I don't mess around with SVGs. And this is why, because you end up with a long line of nonsense I don't know what to do with.
Let's see if that worked. Let's see, where are we? Here we go. Okay, so it is working.
Okay.
So
great. So yeah, we want to take that and make it a lot darker, but that's a good starting place.
Yeah, absolutely. I and that is excellent feedback. That's exactly the feedback I was gonna like try to solicit. Right? Is like what do we want to do with this from here?
Yeah, you want to make it more of like a nondescript background kind of shape thing, like we did with the other one, where you have a bunch of people in it, but you didn't necessarily notice that. You want this kind of background, but in a way that's not like popping out of your face like it is right now.
So my favorite way to do that is with linear gradients. So I wish I could see like the rest of this.
Can you try like bumping your font down a little bit? Would that show more of it? No, same thing.
It doesn't seem like it is.
What if you copy paste it into just like a text file, like a text edit file?
That'd be good, I think. You know what? We do have. Here, let me nuke this.
Or can you break it into multiple lines?
Yeah, that. So weird. Oh, I wonder if it is word wrap. I wonder if that's just the setting that I've got in. Okay, settings. Let's try word wrap on. Let's see if thank you. That's it. Yeah, so
now it's just like 90 lines of SVG or a couple hundred lines.
It's a massive SVG here, but even so, like this will probably, I think, be more performant than if you were to serve this as like a like JPEG or something like that.
Yeah, no, this is why SVG is dope. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, so
like I see something like this, and I'm like, what is happening here?
That's a great question. Basically, it's a bunch of instructions. So the you'll notice that there's like a bunch of like letters.
And so it looks like, but also looks like there's a couple properties in the beginning beyond when it breaks into like total nonsense, where there's like, what are the first couple lines and what are those doing specifically?
So we have the width and the height, which is setting like how big the SVG is, right? This is akin to the width and height you might apply to an image. But importantly, and there's so much I have yet to learn about SVGs as well. But this connects to an interesting thing, which is called the view box. There's an amazing article by Amelia Wattenberger where she talks about how a view box works. But effectively, an SVG, you can think of as like an infinite plane that just exists on your website, right? And when you're looking at the icon in the SVG, thank you so much for sharing that. When you're looking at the icon or the graphic in the SVG, you're really looking at it through like a window into that infinite plane. And so the view box aligns the window against the plane. So you can basically move around the like viewport and see like different parts of it. And this is important because SVGs are math. They're theoretically like infinitely.
As Adrian said, math is what is happening.
Yes. So there's other things. Oh God. There's other things going on, but then you've got this like kind of the D attribute, and this is where you specify like all the like shapes and curves that go into an SVG. So you've got these like letters like M, and each letter refers to a different kind of instruction that basically is akin to like moving the cursor around the screen.
Yeah, and so that's the part where it's like that's the thing is going to handle its business, and I don't need to necessarily worry about that. Whereas like things like the width and height, that's something where me as a developer, if I wanted to tweak this, then I need to know that I can kind of tweak that there. But for the most part, you have this huge mess of math that's going to do its thing, and I don't really need to worry about.
Yeah, we're not going to worry about that. What we're instead going to do is we're going to put, I think, a radial gradient on top of this. And so radial gradient, I always have to look up radial gradients on MDN just to make sure. Wow, having a great time with the spelling.
This is a great lesson for anyone watching. Even the pros Google things all day or a day as they're doing their day-to-day work.
Yep. So yeah, the basic syntax here is we could say it's like a circle at, and then there's like positions. So we could say like center or top left or bottom.
You bump your font up a little bit.
You what? Oh yeah.
You bump your font up a little bit.
Yeah. Totally. We can then specify like at the beginning of the gradient, here's the color you should be using. We can specify a few stops, so colors it will transition to along the way. And then at the end of the gradient, here's what it should look like. So what we want is something that's probably lighter up here and goes to dark down to the right.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
So what I would maybe do is say circle at top right. And we'll say that this is, I think we could just say transparent here at 0. So at the beginning of our gradient. And then let's go with RGB. And we're going to use the fancy new RGB syntax. This is totally fine to use because ideally none of you, like even if you're worried about like browser compatibility issues in general, like, older browsers and whatnot, you don't need to worry about this in this case because you are your only consumer.
That's true. Yeah, because you are generating an image and you're using that image for your own purposes. So whether it works on someone else's browser is not necessarily important. Because is there a point where it goes from a browser image to something that's like actually a PNG somewhere? Like, do you actually turn it into an image file at a certain point?
Yeah, well, so that's when I open up DevTools and do capture node screenshot, and the browser turns that into the PNG for me. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, great call.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really interesting point. Is that like at a certain point, this is going from browser to image, and so where that point happens is when it stops being something that's dependent on your own machine and your own browser setup and having the right browser with the right version and all that, and something that's just a universal image that can be shared around to anybody.
Yep. So let's see if this worked. It might not have. We'll see. Okay, it's very, very subtle. You can see that it is actually darker to the left, though.
Yeah, it kind of looks like just a shadow a little bit.
So, yeah, what I'll do is I'll say, and just to clarify my syntax here. So just like you're familiar with RGB, like 000 stands for the color black. And then you can do this like slash and then a decimal from 0 to 1, and that'll be your alpha channel. So how transparent it is. So the bigger this number, the alpha channel, the more transparent it will be. So I'm actually going to say, let's make this like I don't know. I always like have to do like trial and error here. So let's say up here in the dark, like we'll actually say it's like 30, sorry, up here in the like top right, we'll say it's like 35% transparent. And then we'll say it's like 15% transparent at the end. And we'll see what that does to it. That doesn't seem to have done.
Do you want to get your screen set up so you have your editor on like one block and then the other one on the other
Yeah.
side? And see the changes in real time. Yeah.
Okay, so we need something harsher, I think. Oh, that's right. This needs to have a 0 at the end. That's the problem.
So what does having a 0 at the end do?
Let's see. Just confirming things. Oh, interesting. The 0 and I'm just making sure I get the syntax right first. So this specifies here's what it should look like at the beginning of the gradient. This is like the first stop.
Yeah.
And then 100% says this is what it looks like at the end of the gradient. For some reason, it's not quite going though. Oh, did I do this in the wrong? Okay. I was okay.
Do you have it backwards?
Yeah, I had it backwards. So
Okay.
let's actually make this. Oh, that's cool.
Yes, that's closer to what we're looking for. Just you want so
Yeah.
that's kind of like almost like a dark mode kind of look. That's what I like about your whole aesthetic is that you've got like a purple aesthetic, but it's a purple aesthetic that's kind of like a dark mode aesthetic at the same time.
So I've now gone for it's 55% opaque in the top right and 95% opaque in the bottom left.
You've ever used Remotion before?
I haven't, but I know that this is something that Chris has been using for the FS Jam thumbnails.
Yep, that's correct. Yeah.
So at something roughly close to the dimensions we're looking at, right? Like here's roughly the like kind of color slope. How are you feeling about this?
Yeah, I think if we can make it a little bit darker, because I feel like the lines are still kind of clashing with the text on the front.
Yeah. So let's make this. Maybe we'll try 80. Okay.
Yeah, that's starting to look really good. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's not much of a gradient here. Like it's very like at this point very subtle.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of flat. Yeah. So could we make the gradient more pronounced?
Yeah. We're running into a point where that's not much more we can do than just say. I wonder
could we try a different background image or what is the limitation in terms of getting the gradient to kind of pop out?
Actually, I wonder if I've just got this in the wrong place. I wonder if this needed to come before the. Hang on. Let's see. So yeah, the order you stack your gradients can be very important, and I think this is one of those things that I might just have been like getting wrong. So let's try this. Okay. So if the radial gradient goes on top, there we go. Okay, so it's
interesting. This is the kind of CSS minutia that I would never be able to figure out myself.
Yeah. So let's see here. We can try our kind of colors again and reevaluate. But what was happening was, okay, yeah, this is making a lot more sense now. I was like, why aren't these colors working?
Okay.
See, so it's getting better.
This looks because this looks more like what you were demonstrating first off with the Dallas background. So this makes sense now.
Yes. There we go. Yeah. So we
that looks
absolutely
that started to look really, really nice because with that, like the text itself like pops really, really hard, and like the background stuff is barely perceptible. So at this point we could probably bring the background out a little bit more.
Do you want to bring the background out a little more?
Just a tiny bit.
Okay. Yeah. So let's maybe do like. There we go. So 55% in the top right.
Yeah, that looks really good. I like that.
Yeah. It could be, but this is fast enough, and then we don't risk when I save like losing everything when it refreshes because I'm just doing like browser sync on an HTML page. We don't really have like hot reload in the sense of like it'll save CSS changes and stuff like that.
So at this point, my notes would be, could we make the text in general a little bigger relative to the avatars?
Okay, yes. So you want to up the font size and probably move the avatars around a little would be my guess.
Yeah, because they're kind of like a little bit off in the corner.
So I recently made this hop myself where like this was the font size I was working with for a while, and then I just noticed like in YouTube thumbnails this looked really small. And so I recently went from like 70 pixels to around like 90 pixels. It's something I like. And okay, we're already running into like some overflow issues, but I want to make sure that we have like the right dimensions first. Yeah, okay. So we'll need to let's see how best to do this. 15 characters probably.
And we're getting close to the hour here, so people in the audience have general questions about what's being shown here. If you want other resources or anything like that, now would be a good time to ask that. So we'll be closing it out in the next 10 minutes or so.
For sure. Okay, so I'll bump up the like right margins here.
Chris has a font suggestion as well once we're finished with this last part that we're doing.
Oh, I figured out what was okay. So I had this like margin left here, and this was like exorbitant. But we could actually probably nuke this all together. There we go.
So I've heard that you should not hard code pixel values into CSS. Is that an incorrect assumption?
Oh, context matters. In this case, because our thumbnails are all the same size, and you don't have to worry about like people zooming, do whatever you want.
Okay, so that goes back to we have full control over how this CSS actually looks at the end of the day. So in that case, hard coding pixel values is okay because you're looking for very fine-grained control.
Right. Because we're not looking for people to consume this as a website, you know?
That makes a lot of sense, yeah.
We're just using HTML as a templating engine for our images.
Cool. Yeah, no, this is like, it's a whole different way of thinking about CSS. It's kind of mind-boggling, actually.
Yeah. Okay, so there's probably more let's see.
Yeah, right now your avatar is overflowing your title.
Yep, I'm trying to figure out the best way to fix that. And we may just decide to not spend more time worrying about that, just in virtue of like having time. But let's see, max width, maybe 80%. Here we go. Okay, this will do it.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's maybe not like the prettiest thing in the world.
Yeah, I think having the title on multiple. This is a thing that happened with the FS Jam social cards that we're generating too, is making sure that it is on the right amount of lines. So I think that I would be cool with the title being on multiple lines as long as the guest's name is one line.
Absolutely. Okay, I want to look at the font that was suggested. And we'll get your input on whether you like
Jakarta-Sans tokotype.github.io.
Okay. This is a pretty cool font. I do like this. I think it's nice and clean.
Clean is like nice.
Probably free.
Yeah, is it free, Chris? Chris is like, actually, I'm a vendor. I'll be $900.
Let's see. Yeah, so I'm trying to think. Like you could absolutely like download this and set this up, and you could bundle it with your thumbnail page if you wanted, or you could just install your font like locally and just pull it up specifically on your machine. I don't know that this would be like a good time for doing that. We could also just look at like, for the sake of time, we can do Google Fonts.
Yeah, let's just grab a nice looking font. And do
you have a favorite?
Oh, that's a good question. I like clean and unobtrusive.
Yeah, I think what I'm gonna do is sans serif and display fonts.
I mean, Roboto looks pretty good. That was the very first one.
All right. Yeah, I think Roboto might even be variable. Is it not? Looks like it's not. Yeah, I think since we're coming up on top of the hour, like maybe we won't spend the time with the fonts, but you can see how like just by experimentation, right? We've been able to get to something we kind of like, and you can tweak this, you can improve it You can get what you want. But what I love about like starting with social share cards and why I'm so excited for this is it's such a salient scope, right? It's something that we like anyone who hosts people for their streams, like it's something you're going to have to worry about because you need to promote people, you need to promote the streams. That's out like
You
that's
want
a
to look
duty of care.
good and clean
Yeah.
because you are representing your guest in the way
Yes.
that you present them. And so, like you said, you looked at it as like a responsibility. And this is the same way I saw FS Jam, which is that like you're putting an episode out that like this may be the first and possibly only episode this person will ever put out like in this kind of medium. And so like if you don't represent them well, like you're
Mhm.
putting this out into the historical record to be like representing them for ever. So like the more time and effort and like care you can put into how you're presenting them is just like worth so much more than the time you put into it. So I think this is really great. And I'm super happy that you kind of like walked me through this. I think this is a very unique solution to this problem that everyone kind of faces. And yeah, I hope that others will kind of like look at this and maybe get inspired to create their own kind of like web standard social share cards, and that we could get people kind of sharing these around the same way like you have Show My Chat, which is next time I'll have you on to create a chat overlay for me whenever you have the time for that. And so Show My Chat is the same thing. You create a chat overlay that is based on just web standard technology and HTML, CSS. And once you kind of create that, you can have other people come in who know this tech and know how to style it this way, can add their own styles and their own themes, and they can actually build on top of this. So I think it'd be cool to have something similar to what you know is Show My Chat and all these like chat styles. It'd be cool to have the like social share styles as well.
That would be incredibly cool, and might have to think about that for a bit. But yeah, so this is, and also, you know, when you get something you like working, it's infinitely reusable. Like we took a bit of time struggling with the CSS today, but like you're only going to have to do that the one time until you get a layout that you're happy with. And what this means then is you'll have something that's like plug and play for all your future streams. It's a way to save a whole lot of time without having to open up like a graphics editor. Because I mentioned Inkscape earlier. It sucks on the Mac. It's such a unperformant hog of resources that I don't like opening up on my computer. And I can do things much faster with HTML, and this is HTML that could be version controlled if you wanted. You could hook this up into your framework of choice. So maybe you personally don't like manually editing your HTML file, but you could see a system where this could fit into like an Eleventy workflow. My setup is actually powered by Eleventy. You could fit this into an Astro workflow or something like that. Like,
so where does Eleventy add value for you? You said Eleventy is in your sort of workflow. So based on what we've already shown today, what is it that you would get by adding in Eleventy to you?
Yeah. So let me actually just show you what I've got.
Chan in the chat.
Yeah. So hello, Chan. It's good to see you. Let me show you something that I've got because this is kind of fun. So this is more or less the same setup, right? Like we can see it's we've got our header, we've got our avatars, some styles and whatnot. But then I've actually loaded everything up in my front matter, and so I can say like, oh, the host is Ben Myers, the guest is Jim Drury, timestamp is, the title is, and then when I come down to the avatars bit. I personally, you'll notice that I'm not directly linking any of our avatars, but I'm instead saying, hey, like there's a host here. Go ahead and process the host and spit out their Cloudinary URL. And then process the guest, spit out their Cloudinary URL. So this generates, using my Eleventy data kind of workflow. Actually, where is it? Is it...
That's super interesting. Yeah, and it's making me think it's like, do I want to kind of like, do you have a repo where I can like fork your Eleventy setup?
Yes, it would be it's github.com/semanticsdev/semantics.dev. But this is like the full semantics website, including other things like all the stream pages and whatnot. So it's kind of this an all-encompassing thing that I've been working on. So what this
Yeah,
allows me to
this
do
is
though,
super tight.
yeah, what this allows me to do is I can pretty quickly oh, that just opened up in the wrong browser. That's okay. I can come to the thumbnail. It's actually a underscore thumbnail now. There we go. You can see that this actually has like, Jim. But if I come back to here and instead say that the guest was Anthony Campolo, I have a data set up that lets me just quickly grab the avatar I have on file for Anthony. So it updates here and it updates here, kind of in this one-stop shop. So
Cool.
that's, again, don't start here. Don't start with this like
Yeah.
all-encompassing automation. Because if you start with like an all-encompassing automation, you're going to quickly like create your own pain points. But I've gotten to the point where I know that my social cards are formulaic enough that I can integrate them with my site, which has all the data for like all the different guests, because I display those. Let's see, there's the
Hey, that's me.
Yeah, and so it's using the same image and setup that we got here.
Yeah, that's the thing that kind of really blows my mind, is that you have your entire deal set up to where all the integration points are all kind of working through this like 11D data cascade flow, and that's something that only an 11D pro like yourself could kind of set up. But yeah, it's very, very cool, and I love that you started from the assumption that I want to build everything up with standard web technology. And then like, as you add other pieces, you add other services, you add other frameworks, you add other stack side generators, it's always kind of building on this base of like HTML, CSS as like the thing that everything kind of spins out from.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just, it's very cool. I think that it's an easy enough workflow that, if you're finding Cloudinary difficult to work with, or if you're struggling getting Cloudinary to work and style things just the way you want it, and you have some like HTML and CSS chops, like just kind of go to town, make a website. How would you do this if it were a website? I know that that's not going to be the solution for everyone. Not everyone feels comfortable with that kind of workflow. But if you are, damn, does this make things easy?
It really does. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ben, for walking us through all of that. I learned a ton here, and this is stuff that I'm going to incorporate into my stream going forward, so I can start making my own guests look super duper dope, just as you have. Next week, we're going to have Ryan Carniato as my second guest to talk about Solid, and I'm going to have him walk through the bare bones basic Solid setup for total noobs, because he's done such a great job of explaining Solid to, I think, super uber senior devs, but for kind of us more simple devs who may not necessarily understand everything about fine-grained reactivity, it would be nice to get a very, very simple 101 how to use Solid. So that's going to be the goal for our next episode. But yeah, this concludes the first episode of AJC and the Web Devs. Thank you so much, Ben, for being here and for being the first guest. Definitely let our listeners know where they can find you and where they can follow your own awesome work on the internet.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Y'all, if you want to follow me on Twitter at Ben D. Myers. I'm trying to get the link for that right now, but I might just have Anthony do it. Follow me on Twitter at Ben D. Myers. You'll find mainly it's accessibility posting there. You can follow me on Twitch at Some Antics Dev, where I have weekly streams where I bring on guests from around web development and web design to teach me something about building great user experiences for the web in a hands-on way with a focus on accessibility and or core web technologies. So those are the best places to find me. You can also find me on various Discords. The ones that I frequent the most are the Lunch Dev Discord. That's discord.gg/lunchdev. And the Front End Horse Discord, which you can find at frontend.horse/chat. And that's all the best places to find me. Come say hi. If you're getting started with streaming, let me know. I want to help. I like helping people get started with their streaming setup.
Absolutely, yeah. Ben is one of the best streaming resources out there on the entire internet. I'll say that full stop. If you want to learn about streaming and he is presenting himself as a resource to you, you would be foolish not to take advantage of that. So Thank you so much, Ben, for being here. This is a ton of fun. I think this will
Yeah.
close that for us. I'm AJC Web Dev on all places on the internet. So find me there on Twitter or GitHub or Twitch or anywhere else, or ajcwebdev.com for my blog. But yeah, that will close it out for us. And thank you everyone who is in the chat and who is hanging out for this first episode. This was far better than I was expecting. So it was really great to have you all here following along with us. It's super duper fun.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.